I'm sure you could easily edit that down to about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I could, but you guys wouldn't hear me progressively get more and more intoxicated. um, Hi everybody, it's Natalie. This is the what number? Fifth
I'm
episode?
going to say fifth.
Yeah, fifth.
That sounds about right, yeah.
And if it's wrong, then I'm wrong. But fifth episode of Jetpack Ninjas. What we're doing today is, actually, we'll get into that in a minute. I have Tony here.
Hello.
And Jerry.
Good morning.
And what we're doing is bad games. August 8th is Review a Bad Game Day. And why not get involved with a podcast? So
Perfect.
Yes. So, before we start, what good games are you playing? Anybody?
I'll go first. I played... I didn't...
Guess. Dragon's Age?
Well, here's the thing. So, I've been playing along with a friend because she restarted it, and we've been talking over Skype while we play. But because I've been doing that, I've been skipping over reading the codex stuff.
Oh.
So I wanted to dedicate time this week without her to read those, to read all that info and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And it just puts me right to sleep. I open it up and start reading, and it's like, deep in the deep roads of Orzammar, and I'm just...
So at least now you found the solution to going to sleep.
I guess. There were a couple of days there where I tried to do that, and I ended up sleeping like 16 hours of a day.
I found that is the case with anything with codex.
Yeah.
They're overly wordy. I mean, just get down to it.
Yeah, well, and the other thing too is I mentioned this on a couple other podcasts, but fantasy stories tend to, like, I have a certain aversion to them because I think it's because they deal with faith-based things a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas science fiction is just kind of like, this is the science of it all, so there's not a whole lot of that going around.
Right.
And I think that might be part of why it's hard for me to get into like medieval style RPGs or whatever.
Yeah.
But now that I've read, I finished reading all that stuff yesterday, so I think today I can get into the game a little more. I played a lot of demos last night too. I played the demo for the new Transformers game, which was okay. I mean, it's got some flaws, but it was all right. I also played the demo for Deadlight, which just came out on XBLA, and it seemed cool, but I've been hearing some things that after the first like third, it just kind of takes a downturn.
Right.
But I don't have any money, so I don't have to waste the $15 on that.
Right.
Retro-wise, I played a little bit of Super Metroid.
Awesome.
I'm trying... It's going to be hard. I'm going to try to play that without any kind of guide.
Oh.
And
because it's so easy to get lost in a Metroid game.
Right.
Yeah, but Super Metroid is it's less difficult. Or I'm sorry, it's less difficult to get lost in. Sorry, it's easier to get lost in the NES version.
Yeah. Well, it's because Super Metroid had the map.
Right. In the original Metroid, it's like you don't know where the hell you're going most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Oh yeah.
But that's going to be a challenge, especially when there's like, if you walk through this room, there's an energy tank in the ceiling if you shoot it, but if you don't jump at a certain point, you'll fall into the lava pit. And
yep.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing about Metroid games is it's another game that there are certain points that require precision.
Right.
So,
but I'm looking forward to getting far in that. I also played. It's not really retro per se, but I played Metal Gear Solid 2 over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And I still love that game. It's not as good as 3, but I still love it.
A lot of people. Well, you know what? Actually, I was in with some people who were arguing about this. Some people say that Metal Gear Solid 2 is awful because you don't play as Solid Snake. That is the one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I haven't played them, and I will eventually, but I haven't yet. And the thing is it evidently has an incredible storyline. You have a completely different feeling from the character than
Right.
you normally do. So, and also it's got a sad storyline.
Yeah, it gets a little weird at the end too.
So, but anyway, is that all you've been playing?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
What about you, Jerry?
Well, I have still been kind of on and off playing Assassin's Creed 2. Still haven't gotten to that point that you were talking about where the story kind of flips over on you, but I think I'm getting hints of what you were probably talking about.
A little bit. Yeah, I mean, it's late when that happens, so
Right.
it'll be a while.
But aside from that, not much. Retro-wise, I've been playing Action 52, but we'll have to come back to that later.
Yeah, definitely.
But other than that, yeah, I just started a new job, so I haven't had a lot of gaming time.
Yay, congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm jealous.
So I have been perfecting my Zelda game because I want to try to go for the record of speedrun. But the problem I have with that is I'm a completionist in the game. I have to get everything, and a speedrun requires not getting everything. And I'm not sure. Like, I've gotten it to less than an hour and a half, because that's about where I was before, but now I've gotten it less than that. Well, not even that much more than an hour in a full run.
Wow.
But when I was like watching the world record, the different ones who ran for it, they don't. There's no fighting. There's no, they're just go, and they have to just beat the bosses, pretty much. And they're doing it in like 32, 34 minutes, something like that.
Jeez.
Yeah, so I'm going to have to figure out how I can do this, and I was trying to find 100% complete run, but I can't find any data with that, so I guess they don't have a world record for that or something. They have an any percent complete.
Huh.
Yeah. So, I've been working on that. I've been playing Link's Awakening again because I don't know. It's one of those games that just cannot get into my head, and I'm trying to memorize it the way I do other Zelda games. And then.
Speaking of which,
Yes.
I used to play a lot of Resident Evil 2.
Uh-huh.
And I had all the item locations memorized and where the herbs are and everything. I used to be able to blow through that game in about 2 hours, 17 minutes.
2 hours, 17 minutes in about. That was pretty precise for about.
Well, it varies between like 215, 223, but I went with the average.
Yeah. Then I also have restarted Mass Effect. I'm going through as a guy this time because I'm gonna get Jack. So,
you're after my own heart.
Yep. But and I've been playing some other things. Ooh, a really cool game. Playtheend.com. It is, and actually, I totally recommend anybody go there, like, right now. As soon as you hear this, go there. You can even pause us and come back to listen, because this game is awesome. I don't know, it's an online game, but it is the best online game ever. It's a platformer, and there's the completing the level. There's a getting all the stars, and then there's a time. And so sometimes you'll get 2 of those at the same time. You'll never, time is the hardest one to get. Like if you get all the stars in your first run, and then you have to go through and run it again for time. There's those accomplishments for it. But at the end of each, there's body, mind, and spirit, and each one has 6 worlds within it. And at the end of each of those worlds, it asks you a philosophical question. And then it also there's this table that goes with what kind of person you are, like personality. I guess it's more than personality. It is like and it aligns you with. It shows you what famous person you're most alike, and it's really cool. It's really, really, really cool. But one question is, are having children important, or is having children important? Yes or no? It's that's really a personal question. No one can answer it for anybody else. Every question is like that. Nobody can.
It's
answer
a weird question to think of just in itself, because it's like it doesn't ask whether
you having children is important.
Yeah,
no.
It's just like
and that's
itself.
just it. That's just it. That's how it asks those questions. It asks questions to make you go, okay, how am I going to look at this? Am I going to look at it as a bigger picture, or am I going to look at it as a personal thing?
Yeah.
And is it okay to laugh at death? I think is one of the questions. It might have been worded differently, but that's the gist of the question.
Mm-hmm.
Little things like that you don't ever acknowledge yourself, and in your own, most of the questions you don't even think about in life, but you definitely encounter them in your life. So it's really interesting to see. And the other thing it does is when you get to, if it connects through Facebook, so if you're following people who play, and then you're playing, you can see where they align. And it gives you this thing about, you can see the number of people who answered questions, in which way, the percentage of people of the friends that answered it certain ways, but you can't see exactly what their answers are. You can't see who answered what.
Yeah, it just shows you a base percentage of all answers.
No, of your friends' answers.
Oh.
So okay. you can see, okay, well, I wonder who was the person who said, if you've got 4 people you're following and 25% answered something that was ridiculous to you.
Yeah.
Then you're going, I wonder what friend said that. So it's really cool, and I definitely recommend playing it. I've sunk a lot of hours into it, and it's an online game.
Cool.
And it's free, and it's actually really, really good. So let's see. I'm sure I've been playing more things. I played a little more Braid, didn't get very far. Because I ended up having something else to do and then just didn't come back to it.
Mm.
But I've been playing a lot of things like for short periods of time, and so I can't even name them all. But my biggest one right now is getting back into Mass Effect. It takes up a lot of time, but I have like 2 weeks before school resumes, so I'm pretty sure I can finish it before then. That, and I'm getting better at keyboard controls. So
you can just mash that skip conversation button.
Yep, spacebar.
Spacebar, upper left. Or lower left if it's.
I have been going completely down the middle. There's going to be like no. Just because I want to see what happens, because I'm going to have like no convictions whatsoever. I'm just going to be like a robot, I guess. And
you are already. I don't know if I should spoil it for people. The end of 3.
I've already been to 3.
Yeah, but our listeners.
Oh, we've already talked about Mass Effect.
So, oh, that's right. We had an episode. You are already the shepherd of the Control ending, where it's just like.
No, the synthesize.
I'm a Reaper now.
No, it's I think it's the synthesize, not the Control. Control would be the. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know.
Because synthesize isn't even offered if you don't get far enough.
That's true.
If you don't get enough points. Therefore, it's if you don't have enough options, you're only going to be given the Paragon and the Renegade options. So the synthesize is down the middle, I think. But we've had this discussion that we all see it in kind of a different way. Remember, Nolan thought it was the best option, and you took it, and then afterward you thought it was not the best option.
Well, the extended cut, I did synthesis again because that was the original one I took.
Uh-huh.
I'm happy with that. Like, they did a really good job fleshing that one out.
I haven't even done the extended cut, so I'm waiting to finish.
Yeah.
I want to go with something. I guess I probably could go with my old character and run it again. It's just, I guess I could figure it out. I could do that. It only takes like 10 minutes.
Yeah, you can start the last mission and.
Cutscenes, it takes an hour.
Mm-hmm.
That lovely cutscenes.
Yeah, I've been meaning to go back and do the entire Mass Effect series again, but it's like, I've got the Assassin's Creed games I've been playing, and then I have this whole like queue of games that I haven't played yet that I want to get to.
That's my problem too.
And I mean, I have the same thing, but for some reason, it is a game that is worth playing many times.
Yes, it is.
And it was the game that made the argument of there's no such thing as modern versus retro. They are both completely valid and have their own perks. So, but this is not about good games. This is not about good games.
Yeah, this is a show about bad games.
We have just named all the good games that we've been playing. Obviously, we've been playing great.
For the sake of balance.
Yes, because I think the world would implode if we just talked about bad games. I think my head would, because... So, The first thing that we're going to do is, and I don't have any results from anybody on Twitter. At least I don't think I do. Let me see. We'll check again. No results. So
It's too early for people.
yeah, well,
West Coast is just waking up.
Yep. Well, the thing is, yeah, I should have posted it earlier in the week, and I kept forgetting. Like, I remembered to post the questions about, hey, tell me what game should make the list. But then I forget to go, hey, we have these two games that are going up against each other. But, now, okay, is it Milan or Milan? Or
whatever. Yeah, I always thought it was Milan's Secret Castle. But
okay, we'll go with that. Or American Gladiators. Both on the Nintendo. Which one's the worst game?
I will let you guys talk about Secret Castle because I haven't played that.
The thing is, I only got into it a little bit, and it was, I think, the first game that I just turned off and immediately got rid of the cart. It just, I couldn't. It's not playable. It really isn't. It's horrible. I mean, I guess it might be playable to somebody who is a masochist. But, yeah. Anyway. As we were, because we were talking about this earlier, as it was like a poor man's version of Super Mario 2. I believe it's Super Mario 2, if I'm remembering correctly. Is it 2 or 3 that I'm thinking of?
Is it the one...
Jerry?
It's been a long time since I played this game, so...
Well, it's got, no, it's not even that. It's another game that I was, you go into, doors, and then there's this room, and then you have to climb up.
Yeah, you're probably thinking of 2.
Yeah.
2 was the only one that scrolled up.
Yes, and that's what I'm thinking. But it was a really poorly executed 2. Where at least 2, and yeah, we were talking about 2 because Princess Peach is the best character to play. Yeah.
No, we're talking about good games again.
Yeah, I'm sorry. No, I was just remembering that we actually have had the discussion about 2. So, anyway. So you're scrolling up, and you've got to collect. I don't even remember what you have. This is how bad the game is. I can't even remember.
You've blocked it out. Traumatic memories.
Yes, it was. Jump function didn't work well. Nothing wanted. No, it just didn't react well.
That's the first sign. If a game can't get the jump right, you're doomed.
Yeah, pretty much.
There are way too many games that fail jumping.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, if it's set that way on purpose as part of the game, I get it. Because it's adding a layer of challenge, but you can.
I can't go with that thought though.
Tell the games that do this, because that it's not like it's a delayed function. It's they've set it up for you to be incredibly accurate, and if you don't get it right, then you lose. And that's, again, it would be considered a bad jump function for most games, but it works for what it's doing. That makes sense?
Yes.
Okay. So, yes, it's a horrible game, and you've never played it. I've only played American Gladiators once, I think.
Oh, that game is bad.
Yeah, same here, and I was probably like 6 years old or so when I played it. So
Not old either.
yeah.
I recently went back and fired it up on an emulator, thinking like, okay, I'm older now. I have a little bit better, like, control. I can control games a little better than I could when I was, say, 7 or 8. This game is not good.
I'm gonna
It's just like,
actually look this up and see if you can. Hold on, let me turn off my typing here. You guys there?
yeah.
Yep.
I accidentally hit the key in call instead of the mute button. So I will have to merge these. So
Blooper.
yeah, I was going to see if I can look up the American Gladiator emulator and see if it's actually playable. Right now, because this is going to be so hard to find. Never mind. I'm just going to ignore that. I just even said that.
Yeah, if I was in the other bedroom, I could pop it on my power pack and play it for a couple of seconds, but I'm in the office, so.
Yeah. So
Too much work.
I know there's one event, and it was like this thing where, they took all the events from the show, but then they added, I don't know, they added things to kind of gamify them.
Okay.
And I remember the one in particular that stands out is the wall, where you basically just had to climb the wall.
Mm-hmm.
But in this game, it's like B button was your left hand, A button was your right hand, so you kind of had to alternate.
That's like Heavy Rain.
But you also had to direct them, and if you
so you pretty much had to lay the controller down and use your right hand to
first, if you wanted to get up fast, you had to do it that way. But the problem was, if you got your guy too close to the edges of the handholds, you would reach and not grab something and fall automatically.
Because
and if
you're an American Gladiator, so you don't have the ability to hold on with the other hand.
Right. And if you misjudged your climbing, your left hand, right hand placement, you would just get stuck and not be able to get out of it. Oh God. And it was little things like that. Like every event had something that broke it.
Oh.
It was terrible.
That does
so bad.
I might go with that for my vote. Because I've only played it when I was a child, but there's a reason that I never played it again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think maybe we'll go with American Gladiators. What do you think, Jerry?
I don't know. Myland Secret Castle is bad.
It is bad.
But yeah, that sounds really bad.
And it's almost doubly bad because I used to love the show.
Oh yeah, and it was disappointing.
Right, then there's that factor.
Disappointing. I remember that feeling now.
And it's just like, I want to love this, but I can't.
Right.
It is impossible. Speaking
of things I want to love but can't. We'll get into that. Well, you know what? Because I've made that transition with Skyward Sword. All right, we'll go back to these games now. I'm going to say that all over the place. I hope you guys understand that it's heartbreaking for me. Anyway, yeah, I'm still gonna. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with American Gladiators because yes, it broke my little kid heart.
Right.
Yeah, they really should have put Konami on it because I mean, if you've seen the game they made out of roller games, which was like.
Oh my lord. I don't even remember. That was locked in the recesses of my mind, and as soon as you said roller games, I was like, oh.
because the show was awesome and the game was actually pretty good, but in a completely different way, because they tried to make it like a roller skating beat 'em up.
Oh.
And it was, yeah, that was actually, I think, the second review I did before I even had a format for my show, but it was surprisingly good.
I remember liking that game a lot, yeah. Roller games.
Okay. So, vote goes...
I'm Gladiators.
I'm going to have to go American Gladiators.
Yeah, me too.
All right.
Hey.
Yep.
Unanimous.
And I can't believe, I've been told, Wednesday before, or whenever before there was a game listed, and a second game listed. If I had been told that there was going to be a game to beat Mylan's Secret Castle, I would have called you crazy. But I think you've named the game. So.
I did it?
Yep.
Yeah, if it were Action 52, it'd be a completely different discussion.
Yeah.
Let's have that completely different discussion now.
Yes. Evidently, we've got, bad games. Jerry, you've suggested Action 52 because actually you've been playing that too, and you said you would come back to that.
Yes. Action 52 is my review for Review of Bad Game Day.
Mm-hmm.
And this is actually a childhood game of mine. The thing about this game is that it's like, I think loose cartridges are going for almost $200 now, because it's rare, and the reason it's rare is because they launched it with an MSRP of $200.
Why did they launch it with so high an MSRP?
Because it was, a multi-cart with 52 games, and that was their selling point. This is 52 original games, and, how awesome is it? You've got an entire game collection in one cartridge.
Oh, no, but...
But, yeah.
They weren't great games.
They weren't even good games.
Right.
But primarily the people that bought them were, like, game rental stores, because they were pretty much the only people that would recoup those costs.
Right.
And so I got my copy for like $5, previously used from a local game rental store.
Mm-hmm.
And so I played the crap out of it when I was a kid. And I knew then that it was bad, but I still played it because, it was 52 games. Yeah. It's exciting. Mm-hmm. My sisters actually disagree with me on this point because they have some kind of nostalgia blocked memories. And I don't understand it at all, but
maybe blocked isn't the right word. Maybe tainted.
Yeah, yes.
Tainted. But at least half of the games are space shooters. And at least half of those space shooters have a projectile that is too small to hit anything, without the precision to move your ship around close enough to hit anything. So basically the whole game is avoiding things and then randomly shooting. Most of the vertical shooters, if you continue to hit the fire button all the way through, no enemies will appear. And in some of them, you have to kill a certain number of enemies before you can continue. So it's pointless. But if you in games where you don't, if you just continue to fire, you can get through the entire game without ever even hitting anything.
Encountering anything.
Right. And in the platformers, it has the cardinal sin of NES game design, which is A shoots, B jumps.
I hate when that happens.
Ugh.
And, it doesn't exactly have good jumping most of the time, because when it registers the jump button press, they jump up. And then, in some games, if you're holding, to the right and you jump, it just jumps up. What you have to do is jump and then push right, and then it moves right after the jump.
Right.
And, yeah, so those are bad. And most of the time, their projectiles aren't big enough to hit anything. The collision detection is bad. The only good thing in this game is the music. And even that, most of it is actually stolen from...
other games?
This composer program on the Atari ST had demo songs that they stole to use as background music.
That's funny.
Yeah, I've had to do a lot of research into this game over the past few days, and yeah, the story behind it is more interesting than the game itself.
Well, good. At least you have an interesting story to go with it.
But yeah, it's bad all over. There is not a single good game in the package. There are okay games, but even those aren't something I would sit down and play if I had a choice.
Because you have better options within that whatever genre you're talking about anyway.
Right, I can pop Gradius in and have a much better time.
Yeah. You actually reminded me with the buttons, the backward buttons.
Mm-hmm.
And I might be shot for this. But that is the main reason, and I have more than one reason, but the main reason why Double Dribble is a horrible game. I don't know how anybody likes that game.
My one lasting memory of Double Dribble is one time my friend turned his copy on and it glitched the intro. And instead of saying double dribble, it said double jump ball. So every time we went to play that game, we just always said it beforehand.
Well, it was a matter of... I wrote about my experience. I might have to share that. It was... How many dunks can be bricks? Oh, it doesn't happen to the computer. You can only pass to the people that are on screen, but the computer can pass all the way across the court.
Right.
Then there's the whole, your pass button is B, or I can't remember what it was. But it was backward. It wasn't natural to do it the way they expected.
Right.
And
it's no Blades of Steel.
Blades of Steel is great.
Yeah.
But Double Dribble is awful. And there are so many people who have a nostalgic love for the game, and I'm looking at it like, how could you even like this game at any point in time to have nostalgia for it? So, maybe I'm wrong.
Sadly, though, of all video game basketball games, that's probably still my favorite one.
More than NBA Jam?
NBA Jam just kind of... It's one of those things where, like, if I can't play proper defense, I don't like it as a sports game.
Right.
And I felt like NBA Jam was just like slam dunk, slam dunk, slam dunk the whole time. I don't like that. I'm a goalie, so I like to defend things.
Right.
It's a fun game, don't get me wrong. I like NBA Jam, but that's number 2 beneath Double Dribble, I think.
Oh, yeah, but then it surprised me you like Double Dribble because You can't defend anything.
Yeah, it's tough.
No, it's impossible. Not tough. Impossible. You get within, it's just like you randomly
it was the shot
get the ball.
blocking that I liked, though. Like, every so often you'd get that one rare event where you jump up and the guy would shoot and it would just go right into your hands.
Yes. Well.
And then that's when I would just be like, in your face.
Did you see that? Did you see that?
Yeah. It felt more satisfying to block in that game than.
Well, because it's almost impossible.
Right. I mean, let's be honest. I am not a fan of the sport of basketball, so for me to say a basketball game is good is for me to just be like, it's a 3 out of 10.
Okay. I'll give you that. Though 3 is generous.
Well,
yeah,
it's like,
sadly, I barely remember the game because that was another one that I would have played with friends when I was a kid. I've never really been too big into sports.
Right.
So any sports games that I played were things that my friends were playing, and I played because I wanted to be included, basically.
Right.
So, yeah, I barely remember Double Dribble.
Don't play it.
Probably better off skipping it.
Yeah.
But that reminded me sort of one sports game that I did play the crap out of, which was Epic's Summer Games for the Commodore 64. That game, I enjoyed the hell out of it when I was a kid. As an adult, it's kind of slow-paced and really boring.
What was the game? I'm sorry, I didn't.
Summer Games, which is an Olympics.
Oh, I love Summer Games. Is it really bad as an adult? Because I loved it as a child.
It's not bad. It's just really, really well.
Actually, Winter
really
Games is better.
Winter Games was a better game, yeah.
Winter Games is always better than Summer Games in real life and on.
No, I prefer Summer Games in real life. But this is coming from a runner that
I suppose.
And
I'm all about ice hockey when Olympics come around.
And gymnasts, so yeah.
They both.
Did you see the gymnast that performed to the violin Legend of Zelda theme?
No.
I heard about this, but I didn't see it.
I just watched the video of it earlier today. It was so cool.
I am going to. Oh my.
When we're done.
Where was she from?
She was from the U.S., I think.
Really? Because I watched those, unless I happened to be the one that I was not in the room for, because I did have to leave because my daughter wouldn't go to sleep. It's a trend.
Sorry, I typed. Hold on.
Oh, it's
I said when we're done. No.
Okay, she was the Mexican.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Mexicans.
We're smart.
This will be so. I will check it out when this is done because.
Also burritos.
Yes, burritos.
Yeah, I never watch the Olympics. Really, it's not really a big thing for me.
It's not either, but I really enjoy the gymnastics.
Yeah, I found this thing, and it's like, gymnastics to the Legend of Zelda theme. It just kind of makes sense, and I don't know why, but it does.
Agility.
Perhaps, yes.
Yeah.
When she did her moves, did she go, yeah?
So we need another bad game before, Tony. Do you have another bad game in your?
Nothing. I mean, I have a worst game ever, but I can save that for a while.
Okay, we'll get to the worst game ever in a little bit, and we'll actually go to the list that people have given me.
There are several, and I have more if we need more.
We'll get back to that, okay. So because we're gonna try to mix this up. Albino Kitsune, that's her Twitter name, suggests Prism, the Dark Unicorn, as on the PlayStation 2 Never played it, never heard of it.
Yeah, this is a new one for me.
Yep, same here.
So
I know there was an awesome pony game on the Genesis, but
yeah, well, it's hard to discuss a game we've never heard of or played, but it has unicorn in the title. It should be awesome. So,
that's the thing. Like, dragons.
It should be awesome!
Yes, there are so many games with dragons in them that are just awful. Like Lair on the PS3.
Uh-huh.
How do you screw that up? I mean, you've got dragons, you're shooting things, you're fighting. It should be awesome, but it is
Motion controls ruin everything.
That's true.
Dragons, ninjas, pirates.
Ninjas is touchy.
Wizards. No, these things that should be awesome and have their problems.
Yeah.
Wizards and, well, unicorn. Or is it unicorn?
Wizards makes me think of Wizards and Warriors.
And
I remember liking it, but I don't know if I really like it. I remember getting in a fight with my cousin about it, though.
I'm going to have to play again, because it has been a long time.
I have actually played Iron Sword, Wizards and Warriors 2 recently.
Mm-hmm.
And that game, I don't know. It straddles a line between good and bad.
Yeah.
Like, the boss fights are awful. Anything that involves fighting is terrible because, you've got this sword and you just kind of flail it around and hope that the enemies come close enough to where you're flailing to kill them.
Oh, so it's like when you're... Oh my goodness. What is it that you're... There are certain games that have that in the old games. I can't even remember. Actually, I can picture it in the original Zelda. You had to do it in several other games. It just kind of happens. Because they couldn't program in the ability to do certain things with your sword at that point. So,
well, it's kind of like the difference between the Nintendo Castlevania games and Castlevania 4, where, you throw the whip, or, swing the whip, and you can just flail it all over the place.
I actually just watched my nephew play that, the other day. And we were laughing about that. Many innuendos were made.
So, yeah, it is a problem with early games because there was limited graphically and program-wise, it was just limited. So they did what they could, and it looked great at the time. It's extremely inferior now.
Well, and to be perfectly honest, the things that they actually did do with the NES were way beyond the original hardware's capabilities.
Right, that's just it. The fact that they managed to be able to do it with what they were working with it's fantastic. And I'm going to get into something in a little bit when we get to it, but and it'll go back to programming, and you will know what I'm talking about when I get there. So, Jerry, you said you have another game? Because then I'll get back to the list, more on the list.
I have a lot.
You have a lot. But just
I've played a lot of bad games in my time.
Narrow it down to 3, maybe.
But I'll just throw out then Night Trap. And I will say any version of Night Trap. It doesn't matter which console it's on. Night Trap was originally developed for this console that was supposed to be a VHS player. And, when you made selections, it would actually rewind or fast forward the tape to a certain point and play it. And, of course, this console just completely bombed. and they resurrected the game on the Sega CD several years later, which is why, it's the 90s, but everything in it looks completely 80s.
Starring Dana Plato from Different Strokes. That should be your first tip-off.
But, because it was supposed to be this, VCR system, the actual programming logic had to be extremely limited. Mm-hmm. So basically the entire game is just you switching through different video feeds from this house, looking for these bad guys that are trying to get in and kill the girls for some reason, and then activating a trap to get rid of them. And the problem with it, and the thing that makes it not fun at all, is that you have to know exactly when these guys are coming out so that you can get rid of all of them. And in doing so, you're missing the actual full motion video of, the characters, and you're missing the movie basically that's playing out in the house.
Right. So like the story is running alongside of when you need to be attentive to the villains.
Right. So basically if you play the game properly, you won't make it to the end. If you play the game to win, you won't see the story.
Right.
So
it's not a good story. It's not worth seeing. Well, you would actually have to play it several times because, basically you watch the story for the first part and then you lose. And then, you play the game for the first part and then watch the second part and then lose. And then play the game for the first and second part and And like I said, it's
so
not
it's got
even worth
high level of replayability, is what you're saying.
Yeah, if you're
Fox
an
quote.
Sure.
IGN, 8 out of 10.
Well, and it also has the Night Trap theme song, which is quite possibly one of the greatest and worst things that has ever been done in a full motion video game.
Awesome.
We will have to link that or play it in the background or something.
Yeah, put it in the episode.
So I don't know it. I've never played that game.
Yeah, watch the accompanying video if you can find it.
I will. This should be fantastic. So it looks like I went and looked on the Wikipedia. It looks great.
It's a terrible game, but it was on the Sega CD. They re-released it for the 32X Sega CD. They re-released it for the 3DO. The 3DO.
Money or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they were desperate.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh.
But Digital Pictures.
Oh, go ahead.
Digital Pictures, the company that made it. It was one of many games that they were trying to launch for this VCR system. But then they also went on to create a bunch of other games specifically for the Sega CD, and they were all terrible. But the crown jewel of awful.
Because it was designed for another system anyway.
Right.
They didn't do the Make My Videos, did they?
Sure, but those were bad too.
Chris Cross and Marky Mark.
Oh my.
Yeah, Sega CD was like a hotbed of terrible.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I tried to replay this recently. I am not a fan of Dragon's Lair anymore.
Another one I haven't played.
It was big in the arcade. It was animated. It was one of the first ones where it was fully animated like a cartoon, and then it was just like there were on-screen prompts that you had to push a direction or an action button, and it would play the scenes out. But it was fun in the arcade, and as a kid, I remember it being, especially because of the animation, it was just like one of these things where I was like, oh,
yeah, I remember it in arcade. That's what did it. I think it probably was better in the arcade.
Yeah.
And that's the difference, is how many things actually were better in the arcade. So many.
Yeah.
Well, in the console versions, the best version, at least before they started doing the remastered versions for all the new systems, the best version was for the CDI, which is really difficult to say because, you know, good and CDI don't go well together.
What is it with consoles with CD in the title where it's just like, bad game?
Well, it was exactly what we were just talking about. It's the full motion video games.
Yeah.
For some reason, for a while, the entire industry thought that we wanted to play movies. And, you know, you can do an interactive movie story, but nobody ever did it right in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
But actually, I actually enjoyed Voyeur on the CDI. I didn't think I would. I actually started playing it thinking I would tear it up, but it was actually kind of fun.
And silence.
I'm sorry, I was just coming to sit outside for a little bit.
Silence.
Yeah. I think game developers still think that people want to play movies, but they're doing them differently.
Right.
They're less making the movie happen around you and actually making you go through it.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, well, you look at something like Mass Effect, since, you know, we've all played that and talked about it at great length.
Yeah.
You know, Mass Effect is essentially, it's your story.
Right.
It's an interactive story, you know, from start to finish. And it's a lot like creating your own movie, but, you know, it's yours from start to finish.
Right.
And I think I just said that and basically repeated myself. So.
Yeah, well, it is yours, and that's just it. It's because you make the decisions.
Mm-hmm.
You interact. You know, you've even decided the backstory. I mean, yes, you have limited options, but based on this, you know, you're the one who gives your character an identity. So.
But enough about good games again.
Mm-hmm. True. Well, it was comparative to what happens in bad games, where it makes everything happen to you.
Right.
You know, bad games do, where, you know, good games allow you to make things happen. So.
I just looked it up, and yes, the Make My Video games were done by Digital Pictures.
Yeah, I was going to say, because it had a similar visual style to it.
Yes, I remember those. And I wanted it so badly, but then I'm glad I never, ever.
Yeah, I wanted it too.
And there's a certain amount of happiness that you didn't.
Actually, the only ones that actually worked, aside from, you know, Dragon's Lair and those kind of games, since those were already established arcade games, right. The only ones that worked were the shooters. You know, things like Mad Dog McCree.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I know that Mad Dog McCree, what was the other ones? Like Corpse Killer, that was the name of it. You know, games like that, I know they're bad, but, you know, at least you're having a bit of fun, you know, shooting at things on the screen, as opposed to the other ones where you're just, like, pushing a button and watching something happen.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're all bad.
Yeah. Let's get... Tony, do you have a new game to bring to the front?
I'm going to save my worst.
Oh, yeah, you said you're holding this one up. We've got from B Darka, this Twitter name. Of course, I'm going by all Twitter names, so... or their handle, that you can actually look them up. Dark Void for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 and PC. Again, haven't played.
I played a demo.
Yeah.
It seemed serviceable, but
serviceable doesn't say good.
Yeah, I heard a lot of things about the story not being great, some of the action elements being a little janky, and just kind of everything combining to make it an unpleasant play.
That's another game that I just never played, and the reason I never played it is because I heard bad things about it. Mm-hmm. And, I didn't want to subject myself to a bad game. I did, however, buy the DSi game Dark Void Zero.
Mm-hmm.
And that one was it was an NES throwback. It was built like a retro game, and it was actually pretty good.
Okay.
So I won't talk about it.
Yes. See, we keep leaning toward wanting to talk about good games because talking about bad games just really, really sucks. Again, another game that Tony's the only one who even touched on it.
The one thing Dark Void does have going for it is Nolan North. But
he's in everything, though.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want a good Nolan North performance, go play Uncharted.
If you want to hear Nathan Drake with a jetpack.
Right.
They should have gave him a sword.
Okay.
Yeah, they did that in...
Jetpack Ninjas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would have been a much better game, I think.
Because you better believe we have swords.
Right.
Yeah, we need to develop this game, Natalie.
I actually have a game in the works and development idea, but I'm not going to get into that because it's going to be a good game. So, another one, and this one I've actually heard several people talk about. Sonic the Hedgehog, which is on 360 and PS3, which was submitted by Dr. Scott Pepsi.
I haven't played
Again,
this.
I haven't played it, but I've heard horrible things.
Yeah.
I haven't either, and again, because I've heard terrible things about it. I did play a lot of the other Sonic the Hedgehog games in between.
Yeah.
There was a point, it's like
they gave
Sonic
up.
Adventure. Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2 were both pretty good games.
Yeah.
People will probably get on my case saying they're pretty good because a lot of people think they're great. I don't. They were all right.
Yeah,
I
played Adventure, and it was just kind of... I mean, it was fun, but not...
It wasn't original Sonic. It really... I mean, that's just...
Right.
That's one thing that... It's like, honestly, they kept trying to revamp him and make him something different, and finally they just kind of gave up and said, hey, let's throw some things together.
Yeah, exactly. And there were a lot of really terrible games in the middle, and then there was Sonic Generations, which was fantastic, so we can't talk about it. But all those games in the middle were all really bad.
Yeah, it's like they really didn't know what to do with Sonic because people loved the character, and then what happened was the TV show, and they cut play off of that.
Anytime you try to make a game to sell merchandise, you're getting into bad territory.
Right. Yeah. You look at like Street Fighter, the game, or the movie, The Game.
Yes. Yep. There we go. There's a bad one. Actually, when that came up in voting, I laughed. I just laughed at it because, A, it was a movie based on a game. So this is a game based on a movie based on a game.
Well, we had that again with Prince of Persia something or other.
Yeah. But, I guess maybe you could execute that. It's just bad form. It's just bad. I doubt, though.
What about a game based on a movie based on a board game?
Yeah, like Battleship.
Battleship.
Yep. Don't want to talk about Battleship.
Why, people? Why?
Hey, why are we making a movie based on that board game? I got the movie based on Clue.
Dude, that movie was awesome.
That was great.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite movies.
I even played the crap out of Clue on Super Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I remember that. Wow.
Yes. But
I always love the
Battleship?
super realistic hand that comes out and rolls the dice.
Yes, and it makes the actual sound of the dice hitting the board, and it was just like it definitely. I think it was the first game that really felt like you were playing a board game on your console.
That's probably true, actually.
Yeah. Even like we've got one of the family game nights, and I enjoy those, but we're not talking about good games because again, they're not the best games in the world, but they aren't bad. It is like playing board games at home.
Battleship is actually the first of several movie board game tie-ins. They actually have Ridley Scott, of all people, doing a movie based on Monopoly.
Yeah, I heard about this.
If they do if they do that one right,
that could work.
Could work, and it could be really a social. It would be pushing a social agenda, but it could work.
Right.
Anyway, back to games.
Right.
Well, yeah. Jerry, you got another one?
Let's see. We haven't talked about Shaq Fu yet?
No, we haven't.
Jesus.
I've seen it played. I've never played it myself.
Yeah, same here. I remember it being highly quotable.
It was not good. I mean, again, this is one of the ones that I haven't played since grade school because when I played it then, it was just so bad that I never went back to it. And now every time I find a copy of it, yes. But every time I've found a copy of it since, it's always been way too expensive for me to pick up. I mean, 25 cents is too expensive for me to pick that game up.
Hey, but what
and, if you found it, I paid like $2 for a copy of E.T., so...
But if you found it, like, packaged with something else, you might get it.
Yes. Yes, but I would not pay, $4 or $5 for it because it's not a $4 or $5 game.
See, the thing about getting an old game at a price like that now is like you can go on, whether it's PSN or XBLA or Steam or whatever, and get super high quality games for that price.
Mm-hmm.
So like Shaq Fu, it better be less than 50 cents.
But yeah, the problem with that game, even excluding the not so great gameplay, I mean, it's a typical boring fighting game. There's nothing really. I mean, it's not a good game by any means, and it's probably leaning a little towards the not very good, crappy side. But it's the story, and it's the fact that you're taking a basketball player and you are making him, this kung fu star.
and
that's where the bad comes from.
The slow-moving Shaq.
Right.
Yeah, because he's agile. Just shoot a free throw and call back.
So. Yeah.
Now remember, he was also an incarnation of Steel.
Yes.
And a genie.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, true. So, alright, these next two I'm going to do together because they kind of are together. They're submitted by Shakewell. They are the CDI, Link, The Faces of Evil, and Zelda, Wand of Gamelon.
I never played these.
Again, I've never played them, but I've seen... Again, yeah. I've seen so much because they're notorious.
Yes.
You have to go and watch the videos of them being played, and it's just getting through. Like, yeah, they're. I guess the cutscenes make it worth it because they're amusing in not a good way. They're so
boy,
bad.
I can't wait to bomb some dodongos.
They're so bad. You have to watch.
The nose they give Link.
Yes.
My favorite part is the zoom out, zoom in, zoom out, zoom in.
Oh man!
Like right in the middle of a conversation, you're like looking up his nose, and then you're like 10 feet away, and then you're looking at his eye.
Yeah. It's awful.
But even beyond the cutscenes, the problem with these games
because
is
you
that
have played.
Yes, I have. The CDI it's not a game machine. The CDI was designed to be basically a VCD player, which is, a digital video format prior to DVD that didn't really take off in the States.
Right.
And, because of that, most of the games were interactive videos.
Right.
Right. And the reason that these games didn't work is because they took a system that didn't have the RAM or, the programmability of an actual game console and tried to build side scrollers on it. And it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
It's just bad. I mean, there's no other way to put it. But the reason it exists, and you guys probably know this, but for the benefit of the audience, the reason it exists is because back when Sega CD was the big thing, Nintendo was working on their own CD console, and they were trying to work with both Sony and Philips.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And what happened with Sony? Their CD system became the PlayStation.
Right.
And with Philips, they went on to design a completely different system of their own, but they maintained the rights to some of Nintendo's properties.
Right.
Which were, Zelda and Mario, and they made one Mario game that actually got released and one that didn't. And they were all bad. I mean, Hotel Mario's okay, but it's not good by any means.
Right.
And that was a long story that didn't have much of a point.
Yeah, well, no, it was the point was that Nintendo was trying to get their thing out, and pretty much they signed off for another company to be able to use their product without having things in place, really.
Yeah, and I don't think there were any checks and balances from Nintendo either. Otherwise, I don't think the games would have even come out.
Yeah.
Right.
But I remember actually being a kid at like a Sears or something with my dad and looking at the CDI and, picking up the Zelda games and saying, oh my God, they're these Zelda games and they're not on Nintendo. Can we get one? Can we get one? And the system was like $500.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there was no way we were getting these.
Yes.
And I'm very glad now that my dad didn't buy those for me.
Yeah, you would have been very disappointed as a child. Let's see. I have two more games here that were submitted by other people, and these two were submitted by Almost Apollo. One is Zelda 2, and I agree completely. The thing is, honestly, it's not a bad game. It's a horribly difficult game.
Yeah, I agree with that statement.
Which I guess can be translated to bad when you're going from, I guess the original Zelda's.
That's the thing.
Really difficult.
Coming out of the original Zelda, you're expecting a certain play style and a certain feel, and Zelda 2 just totally went in a different direction.
Well, it went more toward like Final Fantasy or
Yeah, I mean,
or
it had
like
that.
any of the RPGs that were around that same time. And
Right.
I would guess Zelda 2 is more of an RPG than any of the other Zelda games.
Right.
I actually really loved Zelda 2 when I was a kid.
And you don't now?
It's not. I don't think it's the horrible game that everybody makes it out to be. I mean, it's not. It's not at all on the level of the original Zelda or A Link to the Past or even Zelda's Awakening or Link's Awakening.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's not on the level of any of those games, but I don't think it's a bad game.
I think what we're if you look at it from the perspective of a Zelda game, you have expectations. And
right.
In that sense, yeah, it is a bad game because it does not fulfill the Zelda expectation.
Right, but if it was like Legend of Bob, it probably would have been a classic.
Yes. And that's just it. We're you looking at it from a completely objective perspective. It's not a bad game. It's just really, really hard.
Right.
Like so hard. I've never beaten it yet. I've tried, and I get in there and I get to a point, and it's like I can't win because you only are given so many lives.
That's where it kind of broke for me. Is like a game that large needs to have like more of a, I guess, like a save system of some kind, not just like lives.
Especially since their first game had a save system.
Right.
Yeah, and it starts you back at the very beginning every time too.
Yep.
No matter how far you were.
Yep. And so it gets to be extremely frustrating. I think in that sense, yes, it's broken.
Didn't that game, when you lost all your lives, it showed like a shadow of Ganon, and then he laughed at you?
Yeah, well, yes.
Oh, can I swear on the show?
Yes, you can.
Fuck that guy. I just remember too, it was almost like the Soda Popinski punch out laugh, where it's just like
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yep.
But not as good as the Mr. X laugh from Kung Fu. Oh, 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 oh.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. So I think we can, for the most part, it's not a bad game. It's a bad Zelda game.
Yeah.
Right.
What's
the last?
The last one?
Yeah.
I told him I wasn't going to say it, but I am because I want to argue this one.
We're just going to make fun of him for this choice?
No, and I will actually list his reasons as soon as I say it. A Link to the Past. And why? He didn't like the idea of the Dark World being the same size as the Light World, and because it meant exploring twice the amount of space. That was number one. His second reason was because it couldn't, you couldn't go from the Light World to the Dark World in any screen. You had to go and find the spots, the warp points, and which meant to him backtracking. But there are 2 points here. That was the puzzle. I was trying to figure out how to get around all that. Mm-hmm. B, I know, Jerry, you read that thing about, or I'm pretty sure you did, about that interview with Miyamoto when he was talking about A Link to the Past, and he wanted to have warp points at any point, and it just left, it ended up breaking the game, more or less, to have them.
That makes sense, yeah.
And so they just went with their original design with having the warp points in certain places. Plus, then they didn't have to redesign the game for a new puzzle, because every Zelda has a puzzle of some sort.
Right. And that was part of it. Like,
yes. And this was just a larger puzzle in the big, in the grand scheme of things. And those were his reasons for not liking it, and he, to him not having, and when I made this argument with him about, he went ahead and he wanted to try it, and it didn't work. So to him, that was, they failed. No.
Another point. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Another point to make, his argument about the world being the same size.
Mm-hmm.
That would also mean that Final Fantasy VI is a bad game.
Yeah, I was actually just going to bring up...
and no. That is a great game.
I was going to bring up Symphony of the Night.
Yes.
Because, at the end of the... once you get to the end of the castle, you basically have a choice of whether you're going to get the bad ending or go on. And when you go on, you have an entire upside-down castle that's the same size as the original castle.
And his thing is, he doesn't like Dark Worlds because it means twice the amount of space to cover.
Right.
Especially in large games like a Zelda or even Final Fantasy, or any of these that were they're huge games.
Mm-hmm.
They're as close to open world as they could get at their point in time.
Right.
So they're huge. And you can't really say that having that space means that you are, you have a puzzle. Like each section had a puzzle to figure out.
Right.
And I guess it frustrates me. It really does frustrate me.
Well, and to an extent, you could level the same criticisms at the Metroid games.
He didn't like a Metroid Prime, I believe it was. Prime?
Mm. Now, a lot of people didn't care for Prime. That I don't understand, because I thought it was great.
Yeah.
But I might be wrong on which Metroid game it was, because he's made this, we've had this argument I don't know how many times.
It sounds like, I don't know the guy, I'm sure he's a good guy.
Oh, he's great.
But it sounds like it kind of comes
no, I hate him. Sorry.
It sounds like it kind of comes from a standpoint of just like, I don't want to have to explore more than I should.
Right.
Which, I mean,
I think I
if that's your preference, that's
at
fine.
some point.
But, yeah.
Now, my other argument against that is one of his favorite games is Duke Nukem Forever. And I say that completely.
This is a taste issue, then.
I think
yes.
This completely invalidates his argument.
Right.
But still, he and I have gone. There was one night that we went back and forth for 2 hours.
Yeah.
So, and this is a regular occurrence. This argument is a regular one, and I know he put that in there just to irritate me.
To the credit of his point,
yes,
there are games that have that feature of a second world that do it terribly.
Mm-hmm.
The one that comes to mind for me is Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver.
Okay.
Yes.
That is a lot of backtracking, huge world on the PlayStation. So it's 3D, but when you're in the alternate dimension or whatever, there's this kind of haze or a fog, and different objects kind of take a different shape so you can get to other areas. It's just way too much to have to worry about. And yeah.
But
I'll be honest, though, the only reason that I played through all of those games was for the story. The games were not very good.
I stopped after Soul Reaver 2.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't know if that was maybe it was Soul Reaver 1, but there was one where it's you beat the final boss and it's here's a little warp portal, and then it just ends and says to be continued.
Yeah, two is the one that picked up at actually. Yeah, 2 is the one that picked up at the warp portal.
Okay. I just remember getting to that ending and being like, I hate you.
Actually, let me look that up. Hold on.
Yeah, and well, the thing is, as you were saying, there are some games that have done it wrong. A Link to the Past is not one of them.
No. If anything, that's one of maybe 5 that are great and do it perfect.
It's part of the way the game was designed. It was meant to be a puzzle. It was meant to be, you're not supposed to be able to get to everywhere immediately. You're supposed to wait until you get what you need to. And if you had the ability to warp at any point in the game, any room, then what's the point of getting up the mountain and going and getting the mirror?
Right. There'd be no exploration involved.
Right. And that wouldn't be a Zelda game. Nope. Part of it is the adventure. That's why it's an adventure game.
There's a reason A Link to the Past is considered by many to be the best game of all time, including myself.
And mine too.
Mm-hmm.
Because it does something that is timeless. That you go back and it's designed really well.
Correct.
I can't even get into like the way it transfers from Light World to Dark World. You can tell you're in the same place, but there are enough differences that you're not in the same place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it never feels stale.
Right.
It never feels like it's daunting.
Right.
But no, and it didn't feel daunting, but it didn't feel easy either.
Right.
It
added enough challenge for you to want to find your way through all of it, but not turn you away from it either.
And it allows for I was going to say something and I can't remember what. My daughter came and asked if she could watch. And it allows for, oh my goodness, what was it that I was going to do? Oh, because of what happened with Zelda 2, it kind of reinvented the whole concept of the overworld Link.
Right.
And the way that we know him.
It was almost a throwback to the old Zelda, but then it added enough to make it feel like something completely new and
it allowed you to get back into the character, where the other in Zelda 2 it didn't really give you that opportunity. So actually, I think this one actually gave us the opportunity that we wanted to talk about good games, because.
Well, wait.
Yeah.
Let me go from my favorite game to my all-time least favorite game.
Actually, that's the transition I was about ready to make. So you go ahead and you do that because. Yeah.
All right. I've said this before. I don't know if I've said this on this show. If you can avoid it at any costs, do not play Final Fantasy 13.
Oh yeah, I've heard horrible. I've
game
heard both sides of it.
Is a piece of shit. I cannot stress it enough. I'm trying to find comparisons as to why, like to other games. It tries to be. I think it tries to be a little bit like Final Fantasy X in its build.
Okay.
It just doesn't work. The story is terrible. It breaks logic many times.
And from what I understand, it goes outside of what is expected in a Final Fantasy series anyway.
Yeah, I mean, Final Fantasy has taken, it's deviated from its old roots of being based in like castles and
Right.
things like that, and it's getting more into a almost a steampunkish or a future tech type of thing, which I don't mind if you can craft a decent story around that stuff, but they didn't do it. Yeah, they just didn't do it, and the gameplay mechanics are terribly broken, especially when you're not learning everything right away.
Yes,
you learn you learn one thing and play for 5 hours. Then you learn the next thing and play for another 7 hours until you get to the 40-hour mark where it's like, you now know everything.
Yeah, I was just going to say that the first 40 hours of the game are a tutorial.
Correct.
Wow.
It is the stupidest thing. They introduce you to summons at some point, and you don't even need them because they just complicate things even more, and it's just like, I don't want to.
Also, Shiva is like a lesbian motorcycle.
Right.
Okay.
2 women who like scissor each other to form a bike.
Okay.
I wish I was lying.
Hold on, I'm going to go look at the picture right now. So.
And the story itself, it's like, okay, so there's these supposed gods. I can't remember. Okay, there's the Fal'Cie, who are like these beings that live in the planet or something, but apparently they can like taint people to become their sort of servants, and if that happens, they're supposed to complete some sort of goal, and if they don't do it in time, they become like these mindless zombies. But if they do complete the task, then they turn into crystal versions of themselves. So it's like, either way, you're screwed.
So there's no actual winning.
Right. But the point of the game is like, your characters become tainted by whatever being. So you're trying to find a way to remove that or complete your task. They don't really make it clear. Do you want to complete your task or do you want to remove this curse or whatever? But then it's just so contradictory where it's like, okay, well, we want to remove the curse, so let's try to find the thing that is responsible and kill it. But then later on in the story, you find out that if you do that, it'll destroy the planet you live on. So it's like, okay, well, let's try to protect it so nobody gets hurt. But then at the end of the game, you kill it anyway.
That doesn't...
What the hell?
I'm confused.
And there's no logic behind it. It's just kind of like, some bad guy comes and says, I will fight you. And then you're like, okay, well, we're going to fight you too. And then the thing in the planet is like, well, now I'm going to fight you for no apparent reason.
Okay, this just doesn't make sense.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've said it before on this podcast, I think, and I'm probably going to say it multiple times, but the only people making Final Fantasy games anymore are Mistwalker.
Right.
And they have to hide it.
Yeah, they can't
call
do
it something similar.
Lost Odyssey is the best Final Fantasy game since 10.
Oh. So, well, the thing is, I haven't heard any reasons why it's good, other than, just people saying that it is good. I think because it's just different.
It has a fairly decent battle mechanic.
Maybe that's it.
That's its one saving grace.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
and if you play games just for that aspect, then it's a great game.
It takes you about 30 hours to get to where the battle system's any good, though.
True.
Because the
because
first
of
part
the
of it,
40-hour tutorial.
right? The first part of it, basically, it's just completely automated, and it takes a long time before you get to the paradigm shifting thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is where the battle system actually starts to get good.
Okay. Well. All right.
And plus, it's just got some quirks to it, like cutscenes where one of the characters turns his head and happens to watch not preteen, but a teenage climbing over a pile of rubble, and he's like you're about to see like the panty shot, but then this chocobo that lives in his afro pops up just in time to block it.
Yeah.
Things like that. The whiny little kid who can't seem to speak his mind for like 50 hours of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Because they just want you to be pissed off for the entire playthrough. Oh, it's so hard. Everything about that game makes it hard to play.
I had this discussion with my wife just not too long ago here. RPGs, at least modern Japanese RPGs, and to an extent also most of the anime coming out of Japan these days, they lean on existing character archetypes,
right,
in order to not have to tell a story about these characters.
Right.
So, you get the bubbly little girl who, is basically Selfie, who is Vanille, who is
Riku.
Yeah, Riku. And then, you've got the strong female character who is Ash and Yuna, and basically it's the same character over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And they make it so that as soon as you start the game, you know who these characters are because you've seen them over and over and over again.
Yeah, in some other form.
And they don't have to tell a backstory because you just recognize who they are and what they're going to do.
Right.
And yeah, it's kind of getting old, I think.
Yeah. Especially since we kind of live in a world that expects change. And for a little while, most people are content to be being told that it's changed because it is different, and I'm putting this in quotes, characters.
Mm-hmm.
But then they figure it out.
Right.
Well, I don't know that a lot of other people have this figured out. They
just figure it out that they want something different. They don't know, they might not know what it is why they want something different.
Yeah, I just recognize these things because, I've studied character design and I can see, the same mold being applied to each of these characters.
It just feels so empty too, like because you don't get a backstory or because you don't get some sort of exposition as to why a character is a certain way. It just feels like you're playing with like paper dolls.
Right.
Right.
That doesn't satisfy what I want in a story, because it has to be there, even if it's just a little bit.
Right.
Well, yeah, and I guess even in the older Final Fantasy games, when they were using these same characters, they took the time to actually explain who these characters were.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing about 6 that I love so much is when it goes to the world of Ruin, you're basically going through each character's backstory to recruit them again.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives you something to relate to each one of them, and then it almost makes you root for them.
Gives you a relationship.
Right. But this game does not do any of that.
Love it. And the thing is, you think they would learn that people really like to build some kind of bond with the other characters to give them a reason to keep them around, a reason to fight with them, a reason to even, want to continue playing.
Right.
That was the problem with 12 also.
Mm-hmm.
There were no characters that you wanted to root for except Balthier. And the fact of the whole thing was that the original story that they'd written was Balthier's story. He was supposed to be the main character. it was supposed to be, he and Fran, and I don't know where the story was supposed to go, but they tacked on the thing with Vaughn and Pinello, and then it basically went from there because they needed the two young characters to be all, I don't know, Final Fantasy. And then they basically retold the story of 9 with different characters.
Mm-hmm. This is okay.
And that's what is baffling when you hear quotes out of Square Enix. There was a recent one where they said they didn't want to consider doing a remake of Final Fantasy VII until they came out with a game that surpasses it.
Right.
And it's just like, if they keep doing things the way they're doing, that's going to be never. So.
But maybe because we also now live in a world where everybody can speak out, and maybe enough people will say something and it'll give them the idea that, hey, we're doing this wrong. We need to go back to what we used to be. I don't know, because, how many companies actually do listen to...
And it's a hard thing for a Japanese company to do that because of their culture and the way their honor system works.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
I've been hearing a lot of... Go
Sorry,
ahead. Well, I've been hearing a lot of discussion about this, type of thing where, they don't want to... If they go back and remake 7 instead of making something new, then they kind of might look at it as some sort of a defeat to their pride.
Yes.
Or, if they canceled Final Fantasy 13 Versus, which is never going to come out, I think, but if they do cancel it, then it's kind of the same effect. Like, it's admitting that they were wrong, and nobody wants to do that over there.
But you also look at what Nintendo was doing with the Wii U, and they are making some major changes that, and the problem I'm having is that they're making these changes because the people have asked for them, and it's still not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
It's still not good enough because, now we're pandering to hardcore gamers, and the hardcore gamers are, well, it's too late. You should have done this all along. Well, you know what? They're doing they stuck with what worked for them for so long. They didn't take into account that where, PlayStation and Xbox came out at such a good time, they came out during the transition time for, the young, the gamers, that the gamer generation, that they were able to grow with them really well. Where Nintendo is so old, and it was sticking with these ideals that it was a family, gaming was a family-oriented thing, and it wasn't growing with people. But they have at least admitted that they are, of course they're going to stick with their family-oriented gaming, but they're also going to include more mature content, and I can't. They're admitting it. They're admitting that they did it wrong. So it's not above them or below them, either way, however they look at it, to go and say, okay, we've screwed up. We need to go and change this. Yeah. So, it might be part of their culture to be prideful. But
well, the thing with Nintendo, though, is that they've done this before. When the GameCube came out, they were doing really well.
Right.
And the reason for that was because after the N64, the N64 wasn't the success that the PlayStation was.
But it should have been. And
yes, it should have been.
It's got great games on there.
But, when they got to the GameCube, they were still in-house for the majority of the GameCube's lifespan. They were still doing their nice family-friendly stuff.
Right. Well, and also GameCube seemed to be like licking wounds to me.
But, towards the end, they hired on Silicon Knights and had them do games like Eternal Darkness and the Twin Snakes, and these are all very.
But now let's remember what they've done since.
Yeah.
Okay, so come on, name what they've done since. This is a bad game show.
Too Human is a terrible game. Terrible. Yes. Any game that when you die makes you want to turn it off just so you don't have to watch an 18-minute cutscene.
Oh my.
Oh man. That is a bad game.
So, well.
What else? I know they've done other games, but they're just not good.
So, well, yes. I'm hoping this is better than the GameCube, because GameCube was not particularly successful.
Well, the problem is, Nintendo started out as a toy company, and they never stopped being a toy company.
Yes, but at least now it seems like they don't want to be.
Right.
Where it does seem less family oriented, even though you've got your oh god, what is that called? The Nintendo World, is that what it's called?
Nintendo Land.
Nintendo Land. There we go. But from what I've heard from people who've actually played them, like who were at E3 and tried them out, it's awesome. It's not just, oh, this is so fun, this is, a game, blah, blah, blah. It's actually really good. So, and I'm talking specifically about Nintendo Land right now.
Mm-hmm.
And they had so much fun with it. Especially, out of all of them was the Legend of Zelda one, where whoever was had the main with the screen, the Wii U controller, that's the Archer, and I hear that was just awesome. So, which is the one that I look most forward to, of course, because.
Yeah, see, I want to see a new Four Swords game incorporating those controllers.
That could be awesome. That would be the perfect platform for that.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that the Wii Nintendo has tried to do was maintain the whole you have to come to my house to play.
Mm-hmm.
Even though there were some there weren't many games that could be played. And there were none, I don't think, that could be played co-op, but there could be some where you could compare scores and things like that.
The GameCube actually did have the best Phantasy Star Online.
Okay.
Which was an MMO that was very popular for a short while there.
Right. Phantasy Star was pretty big. But, the thing with Nintendo is they are trying to make a difference, so, in what they have been doing. But, this is actually about Final Fantasy 13.
Right. Got a little sidetracked there.
Yeah, and
that's fine.
But there are certain parallels between the two, honestly. They started out with something, and it's kind of the difference is with Nintendo, they started out with something, I guess they're not really parallels, and they've kind of just stuck with it.
Mm-hmm.
Final Fantasy started with something, and they stuck with it for a while, and then they tried to make this big difference, this big change in what they were doing, and it doesn't work.
No, not at all.
And that's the difference in games and gaming.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Gaming has to grow. The games, there's a pretty set idea of what people want in a game. And each genre has its own set of rules, but you have to have a storyline. You have to have a solid storyline. You have to stick, like, if you're a series, you have to stick with things that work within your series and not, some kind of lesbian motorcycle. It's just things like that it doesn't work. And you need to admit that it doesn't work and go back to what does.
Well, I think one of their biggest problems, well, aside from the fact that they don't have Hironobu Sakaguchi there anymore, is the fact that they're putting out games that should be side stories as numbered games.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And they're putting out games as side stories that should,
Yeah, they're putting out side stories that should be numbered and numbers that should be side stories.
Yes, exactly. And the numbered games are all, trying to be new and different and all of that kind of thing. And the primary problem with Final Fantasy XIII is that it's a numbered Final Fantasy game. I mean, if it was just, Adventures of the Foul Sea or whatever, people would think it was an okay game. But because it has that Final Fantasy name associated with it, that makes it that much worse. But yes, I hear your objection, and you're probably right.
What if it were named Spiva Lesbian Motorcycle?
Then it would just be a bad game with that new title. But it might sell better.
Yeah. It's got lesbian in the title. I've got to buy it.
Oh, man.
Super Lesbo Cycle.
Yeah, there we go. I'd buy that.
Also, I mean, we've already talked about bad things about this game, but the cutscenes, I cannot follow what's going on. They're so hectic. There's like a plane flying, and there's no wide shot, and my eyes are just burning.
Yeah, that is just how Square Enix's CG department seems to operate lately.
Right.
I mean, if you look at the hell is the name of that movie? The Final Fantasy VII movie.
Oh, The Spirits Within. Or are you thinking of Advent Children?
Advent Children, yes.
Yeah.
Spirits Within doesn't count. But on the topic of bad things, that was not very good. But Advent Children is a movie where when you get into the action scenes, it's almost impossible to tell what the hell is going on.
Right.
And, it's like they start the scene and they're about to fight, and then there's shit just flying all over the place and people going over here and jumping on walls and then somebody falls. And then it's like, oh, I guess they won.
Okay.
But yeah, that's how the CG is in this game too. It's all over the place. It's almost impossible to find, or almost impossible to follow. But it's gorgeous.
Yeah,
it's got that going for it.
If you played it on the PS3, it was probably more gorgeous than the Xbox version.
I did actually,
because there was some really bad compression artifacting going on the 360.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It was, I mean, I was able to forgive that because I understood why.
Mm-hmm.
But still, like, the cutscenes were just, I was almost envisioning what people were going through with the Pokemon epileptic seizure thing. Because I could not handle it.
So, we go from probably one of the most considered, I guess, best games ever. Because I know a lot of people who consider that the best game ever.
You're talking about Zelda
Yes.
Link to the Past. Okay.
Yes. To one of the most laughed at, detested games.
It's almost it's so confusing to people as to why this game is so
bad.
The way it is. Yeah, I mean, people know why it's bad, but it's confusing how it got made. Almost.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people, they know it's a bad game, but the reaction they seem to have is, "How did this happen?"
Right.
And I'm right in line with that. Like, even
Well,
12.
Yeah, I mean,
is it like that they had all these concepts to go into separate games and just put them all together?
I guess.
It's
hard to understand the mind of a crazy person. If that makes sense. Like
that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I completely get it though, because like, I was a big Final Fantasy fan going back to the NES days, and when I first played Final Fantasy 12, I was like, okay, this is a one-off thing. The rest of them can't be this bad. And then I saw videos of 13, and I was like, oh man, that's going to be awesome.
Right.
Because, I mean, the initial videos, the initial, E3 presentations that they had looked amazing. And then the game came out, and I was like, what in the hell did I wait all this time for?
So does that mean Watch Dogs is going to suck?
I hope not.
Is that a Square game?
No,
it's Ubisoft.
Yeah, it was just presented at E3 and looks amazing. So I was going on this whole. The thing is, they're designed to look really good at E3.
Well, yeah, it's a trade show.
Right.
They're trying to get investors to spend lots of money so that they can make the games.
That's
the
investors.
It's just a highly publicized trade show.
Right.
For shelf space and stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's just it. They're trying to get money and they're trying to get their product out on the shelves.
Mm-hmm.
So, and so you saw it at A3 and you thought it looked amazing. So when you actually did play it, do you think it was more disappointing because it wasn't what was advertised?
I don't know. I think it was most disappointing because it wasn't a Final Fantasy game.
Okay.
I would say, for me, I didn't really have high expectations because their record at the time was kind of leaning toward it not being great.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a little skeptical already, but what did it for me was how they just seemed to disregard any of the criticisms from before. Like, people complained about some of the stuff in 12, about, like you said, like there's no real story there. It's just a lot of archetypes and you're dealing with that. And then the battle system isn't the greatest and things like that. There's no relation to characters and stuff. And it just seemed like they continued on with that.
Well, it sounds like they took care of the battle system.
Yeah, well, that's like I said, that's maybe the one redeeming quality of it.
So they fix one thing, and maybe next game they'll fix another, and and 10 games later they'll have them all fixed.
But if they're gonna,
that's kind of what I've heard. My wife has been playing 13 too. And she is actually enjoying it.
And I've heard horrible things about it too.
Yes. And I don't know. I mean, she's kind of an apologist where those things are concerned. I haven't played it, so I can't speak for it, but I've heard it's every bit as bad as the first, but from other people, I've heard that it improves upon the first. In my mind, taking that story and continuing it with time travel just doesn't sit well with me.
And this is it. That
Lord.
doesn't make sense. It's just not a Final Fantasy game. And the thing is, I've not been big into Final Fantasy, but I still, expect like if I were to pick one up, to be able to go and recognize it when I play it, you know, as what type of game it is, and you know, it just that just doesn't make sense to me. Time travel.
The thing is, they don't even have to go back to, completely back to their roots. They don't have to bring back turn-based battle systems. They don't have to, they don't have to do that anymore. They can make a modern game that is a continuation of the series.
Right.
That doesn't suck.
And that's just it. Because they no longer do it one way doesn't mean that you have to change everything.
Honestly, even if they made Crystal Chronicles a numbered game, it would be better than what they're putting out now.
Can we just all agree that this is all Tetsuya Nomura's fault?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Okay.
I'll say yes because
I think we should just leave it at that.
All right, we'll do that there. The conversation about Final Fantasy 13 is now over. So.
But on that same
point.
Yeah, on that same subject, The World Ends With You was actually pretty okay.
Pretty okay.
Yes. I like Kingdom Hearts.
That's a hesitating thumbs up.
Yay.
I hate Kingdom Hearts right now.
See, I like it, but the problem is Square. That's like the beginning and end of it. Basically, what they've done with the series is they took the first game, which did really well, and then they put out the kind of side story game that is actually required to get the story of the second game, and they made it so that you were basically playing the first game again.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the second game, they put out, I think, 3 other games that are all playing the first game again. The same areas.
I just heard a podcast talking about this, and they made a point that because the franchise is where it's at as far as like in a timeline, like years spent on the franchise, it's almost as if they're trying to separate the Disney aspect so that they don't have to clear the rights.
Okay.
And
although,
I think
when they brought
that hurts it.
Which one? Birth by Sleep. They actually brought in new Disney properties that they hadn't used before. And the same with Dream Drop Distance is going to use Tron Legacy rather than the original Tron.
Can we also stop with the stupid names?
Yes.
Dream Drop Distance, because it's got 3Ds and it's for the 3DS. Fuck off.
Everybody did the same thing with the DS, though.
I know, but
it's like I mastered
Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow. I'm sorry.
No, it's quite all right.
But if you think back, they also did the same thing with 64 in Nintendo 64 games.
Yeah.
But
yes,
at least with that, it made sense.
Right.
Well, yeah, because it wasn't whole words that just started. One started with a D and one started with an S, or 3 words that all start with D's.
Or what was the one? 300 something over 52 days or whatever.
Yeah, I didn't know how to say that name for the longest time. I thought you had to actually do the math and then say the name.
Yeah. 4.9?
And Theta Rhythm is another one with a really stupid name.
But I want to play that. That looks awesome.
For the longest time, I thought it was supposed to be Theatrhythm.
That's exactly how it looks.
That's how I say
it.
But I guess Dissidia Duodecim doesn't make a lot of sense either, because it's written as 012.
Right.
I don't know how you get duodecim out of that.
Nope.
Who knows?
But yeah, the 352 over 5 days or whatever the hell it is the worst.
2 and 10. Yeah. Hold on, what's the whole name?
Isn't it duodecim 012 or something of that nature?
Not sure. Let's find out.
Yeah.
It's just I don't understand.
Yeah, the duodecim it's in
12.
brackets.
It's 12.
So it's Dissidia 012, which stands for duodecim.
Yeah, which is 12.
Is that what that
I believe
means?
so.
They went from Dissidia 1 to Dissidia 12.
Hold on, no, let me turn off.
Yes, it's Latin for 12. I did not know that.
Yeah, I'm sorry that I might know a little Latin.
with duo being
What's his name? Carlos.
Yes. Oh. Yeah.
All right. Well, we could go on and on about the problems of Square.
Yeah, it sounds like they are grasping it. The thing is, the problem is, everybody knows it's gonna suck, but everybody goes and buys it anyway.
Yeah, and it just makes them think like they're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Stop doing that, people.
I am going to catch up on Kingdom Hearts, though. I'll tell you right now. Because I do still enjoy the series, regardless. I think I'm going to skip some of the terrible side story games and just see if I can find like videos explaining the story.
Yeah.
But that's what I did with that card game that was in between the first and second game. Chain of Memories, yes. I'm playing it now on the PS2.
I did that with Final Fantasy Dirge of Cerberus.
Yeah, I started that game and then stopped.
I just watched.
There's another bad game.
Yeah.
Hold on. How does a Cerberus fit into, and I'm talking because it's Greek mythology here, fit into a Final Fantasy series?
That was the character, wasn't it?
Oh, it's a character. Okay.
Well, Vincent Valentine, doesn't he morph into a Cerberus or something like that?
Well, I know it was a Guardian Force in 8.
Yeah, I think Vincent in 7, like his limit breaks, he turns into monsters.
Uh-huh.
And I think Cerberus was one of them.
Okay.
I'm a little ashamed to admit I never got Vincent Valentine as a playable character in 7.
Wow.
There's like this whole quest that I didn't even do.
So, okay.
Anyway.
Well, I mean, at least that is a little more in line with the Final Fantasy series than the things that you were telling me before. I mean, the thing is, like I said, I'm not the biggest Final Fantasy fan. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's just it never grasped at my ability to, play it.
Right.
I couldn't play. I tried, and it didn't appeal to me particularly. But I didn't ever think there was anything wrong with it.
Mm-hmm.
But there is something wrong when it doesn't fit within its own universe.
Yeah, and that's the thing with Final Fantasy. They're never set in the same specific universe.
And that doesn't make sense. It's a series. It should have its own universe that actually.
It's always kind of been that way, though. I mean, there's certain links between the games, like the crystals from the first onward. Yeah, there were crystals all over the place. That was pretty much like the Final Fantasy thing.
there always seemed to be a sensibility involving like the environment of the world and needing to preserve it,
Right.
Those kind of things. And I think where the later games have failed is that they've strayed from that a bit or made it a little too almost too grandiose.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Especially 13, the story deals with like these gods and how they supposedly ignore this world, so they're trying to like lure them back. And maybe it's just my aversion to religious stories like I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Maybe that's part of it too, but they also just logically just botched that whole story. It was dumb.
Yeah.
It's a bad game.
Okay. All right. So we've gone from some. Okay, they're all bad. Most of them are bad. So here we go. Let's do our plugs now, because I think we have talked Final Fantasy 13 into the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah. We could go all day about Square sucking.
Yes.
I'm sure you could easily edit that down to about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I could. But you guys wouldn't hear me progressively get more and more intoxicated. So, Jerry, do you have anything to promote? Because I'm not going to say the other.
I'm keeping my mouth shut right now.
Not in particular. I mean, I would probably just go the route of talking about my review of Bad Game Day review, which by the time this goes up should be available at Famicomplex. Yeah, other than that, I don't have much. I already talked about my wife's Final Fantasy IX project. If you haven't seen it, you should, because it's awesome. And that's really about all I've got going on. Like I said, it's been mostly getting into my new job and all of that. So next week I'll probably be more interested.
Congratulations again.
Well, thank you.
All right, Tony, you?
As always, Blank Showcast is my primary project. Yep. That's usually Tuesday or Wednesday when it comes out. Me and my buddies Tim and Isabel just being goofy for the most part.
Yes.
I've also started another gaming focused podcast with a few Australians. It's called Minimum Requirements. You can find that on minrec with a Q show .podbean.com or look for it on iTunes. I think it's just Minimum Requirements.
All right.
And we've only got one episode out right now. The second one had a lot of technical problems, so the edit is taking forever.
Yeah, that happens every once in a while.
But that should be up soon. And that's hopefully a good episode. We did some interesting things. And that's about it, really. I'm on Twitter.
Yes, you are. They're both on Twitter.
Boots_33 for me.
And then Jerry is...
at Fami_complex.
Yes. And then there is obviously DojoRetro.com. Recently I've added Nintendo 64 to the voting, and it seems to have gotten a lot of people in there. You know, as unsuccessful as the N64 was, I think it's much beloved. So I think it's appreciated later in its life or post-life than during its life. So We all are part of that, and go there, vote, have fun. There's stuff to read and other places that you can go. And I guess that's really all. So, thank you guys.
Thank you.
And you all have fun. So, there we go.